From District 7, we have, our district, we have Jay Dean, former mayor of Gilmer. Longview. and also a fellow Rotarian at the Great Club. And then from District 5, our very own formerly member Cole Hefner. Are you in another club now?
No Rotary, not yet.
Not Rotary? That sounded like, what did you do? Did you jump the fence or something?
Possibly.
Oh, he's joined Private Lions Club or something. Okay. Without further ado, Cole Hefner and Jay Dean.
Do we need a mic? Can y'all hear us? Can y'all hear us okay?
Might have
Pretty easier with mine.
try to use it.
Yeah, you may not need it, but you go okay.
Well, thank you for letting us come double team today. It's not the first chance we've got to double team. Our first meeting together was at the Harmony School District and kind of started the same way. Cole calls and says, someone from Wood County called me about coming to talk to the teachers and folks over at Harmony School that is in your district. So I said, sure, why don't we just go together and visit and talk? And you know, one thing I think is important to understand members of the House, one of the things I found pretty quickly going to Austin was that, you know, we all do work very closely together. There's a lot of good humans in the Texas House. We don't always agree on every issue, but I can assure you it's a close-knit group that tries to work together closely. And when we're splitting districts and doing things together, that, to me, that's just a positive. So I'm glad to be here with my friend Cole. We both went in our first time together as freshmen, and I'm going to assure you, when you go down to Austin, they don't give you a book of how to. And us freshmen, most of the time, are left out on the floor. What just happened? What are they talking about? We're not in the front line, if you will, of some of the senior members that are getting all the behind-the-scenes scooping about all the different things that are going on. Another big thing is we don't go into Austin with a whole bunch of legislation handed off to us. We always categorize it being like a bunch of catfish. We're bottom feeders as freshmen. We're just looking for some bills that we can get our arms around. And thank God we were both able to do some bills in our first term, which is not normal. But they were all based on our district. And one thing I want to make sure you hear today is that forget about politics. Policy is always the most important thing. Also, your district's always the most important thing. When you start seeing members getting away from their district just to play the political things, you start seeing those members go away. So I think you'll find with both of us, we're always going to be about what fits our district first and what's good for rural Texas. And that's exactly what we're about here.
Well, it's good to be here. We're going to be brief. I'm reminded of that almost biblical proverb.
Yeah, they start walking out.
Blessed are the brief, for they shall be elected. Y'all heard that one? Yeah. So yeah, when Lanny called me, I said, man, I'd love to come see you guys. I said, but you know, it's really Jay's district, and so I called Jay, and he said, heck yeah, man, let's go together. You know how he talks. He talks different than we do. He's from Opelousas, Louisiana. But it's good to be here. Yeah, we're still learning down there. We learned a lot, and it was a good experience. It's an incredible honor to get to represent 180,000 people in the Texas House. I make jokes all the time about, you know, you see some members doing things that they need to kind of wait and kind of learn a little bit, because, you know, there's a lot of what not to do's down there, and a lot of what to do's. And one day, so I always say, man, we don't even know where the bathrooms are yet. You know, it's kind of a cliche thing that I say. And one day we were, me and my staff was walking up to the house floor, and I said, hey man, I got to run by the restroom, you know. And they said, well, we can go by this one over here down by the stairs. And I said, what? What are you talking about? They said, the one down at the base of the stairs. I said, how long has that been there? They said, oh, I don't know, since, you know, indoor plumbing. And so we really were learning where the bathrooms were. But what I'm going to do, I figured I want to talk about 2 or 3 things that we accomplished in the session. And then Jay's going to talk about some things that we kind of came out of the session looking forward to working on in the future. And so I got 3 or 4 things here. We're going to try to move kind of quick so that y'all can ask some questions if y'all have some. If you can't hear me, just signal to me. My voice doesn't carry too well. But the first thing that's real big on people's minds and is real interesting to folks is the Sanctuary Cities ban. Has everybody heard about the Sanctuary Cities? Used to, Sanctuary Cities was simply a city or county that just did not inquire about an individual's immigration status. But lately it's kind of morphed into, they're actually not around here, Gilmer, Mount Pleasant, Pittsburgh, we don't have these problems. But in the big cities, it's turned into where when a person is arrested for some kind of alleged crime, and when you're booked into the county jail, everybody's run through the system, you know, you're checked out. And if it comes back that immigration, ICE, has a hold on you, a detainer, for a violent crime that you may have committed in another part of the state or country, some cities and counties were ignoring those ICE detainers. So Vladimir would commit a crime in another state or another part of our state. He'd get pulled over or he'd get arrested for some small crime, and then ICE would say, this guy's wanted for murder and whatever, you need to put a hold on him for 10 days, keep him, we're going to come get him. And these cities and counties are actually saying, you know what, we're not going to do that. We're going to release him because he's not wanted for anything here. So there has actually been violent criminals released from custody onto our streets. And so this bill was to ban that practice. And it did a few things. The state now has the authority to cut off state funding to cities or counties that have these policies in place. It puts in a criminal penalty for officials that have these policies in place, and also implements up to a $25,000 per day fine that these cities and counties have these practices in place. And again, we don't have those problems around here. Our local officials are abiding by the law. It's just common sense, simple stuff. But you know, Travis County, Dallas County, Harris County, they have openly said, you know, we're not going to do that. And so these policies, there's also a process where the Attorney General can prosecute and remove these officials from office, and that have these policies in writing. So those are some of the major parts of that bill that give it some teeth. And then I was talking. One of the main reasons that I got involved in this process, and y'all know when I first got involved, I was here in Upshur County and was a precinct chair for a little while, and then a county commissioner. But what got me involved in the process was the pro-life movement. I believe the most important responsibility that government has is to protect innocent human life. And I believe that life begins at conception and ends at natural death. And so there were some pretty big things accomplished in the pro-life movement this year. One was House Bill 13, which increased reporting for abortion clinics. It used to be every 12 months. It was paper reporting, a very antiquated process. And so now it's increased to monthly. And there are penalties in place for doctors that do not report in a timely fashion. Because the way it was going every 12 months, you know, you could have an abortion facility open, perform a bunch of abortions, and close and be gone before the first report was ever due. And so this not only increases reporting requirements for difficulties and problems that happen during those procedures, but it also puts in criminal penalties for people who don't comply. DNR orders, do not resuscitate orders. We did some reforms on that to give more family involvement in making those decisions on those do not resuscitate, more accountability and family involvement. House Bill 214 was a big one. It removed the mandatory coverage for elective abortion coverage in our health insurance policies. So used to that was in the policy, automatic, and so the state now says, you know, if you want your health insurance to cover that, well, then you can purchase a different kind of policy to cover that procedure. And so it's not in there automatically. And another thing was the Dismemberment Abortion Ban. We amended a bill, let me see, I put it on the back here. Yeah, Senate Bill 8, which was to ban the practice of basically selling fetal remains. And so it's a very gruesome process. It's the most widely used process for abortion, is to dismember the little baby, and then they were taking those parts and selling them for research. And so this bill was to ban that practice, but it was also amended to mirror to ban the whole practice altogether of dismemberment abortion. So that was a big deal. And so that was some of the best pro-life stuff.
Burial of fetal remains.
Right, so the fetal remains, we require proper burial. And so despite what you hear a lot of times, and things are hard down there, so there's over 6,000 bills filed in the House and Senate combined. So it's really hard to get a bill passed. I mean, it's really hard. And but we had a lot of good pro-life bills. It was one of the most pro-life sessions we've had in Texas history. And so it was a good session on that front. Second Amendment, yes, sir.
I have a question about that, dismemberment, is that what you call it?
Yes, sir.
I can't imagine somebody coming to you and lobbying against that. Did you actually have people that were lobbying?
Yes, you betcha. It was a fight.
Really?
Yes, sir. And it's something that I don't understand, but it is a real fight every year. And we get called everything you can think of from all kinds of stuff. But it's a real battle, and something to, luckily, and Jake can attest to this. Back home, we don't have to worry about what our district thinks about this. We know, and so for us, the issue is an easy decision to make. Now, the battle of getting it done is never easy, but it's not like we have to wonder where our district is on these issues. So that's always nice. That's one thing about being in the House. You're so close to the people. You run every 2 years, which is really painful. But when we go down there, I mean, 99% of the votes that come to the floor, I don't have to wonder, I wonder what my district thinks about this. I know immediately. Yes, sir.
The do not resuscitate changes, is that going to require all of us to redo our DNR?
I don't think so. From what I understand, it was doctors were able to circumvent families' wishes, and so it basically strengthened the family's wishes, or the patient's wishes. So if you come in there and say, who gets to do those? Yeah, so just more family involvement. And then another issue, and then I'm going to hand this off to Jay, and then we'll take questions afterwards. Second Amendment issues. We, around here, we're also for Second Amendment. I know people in this room are, and I am. And we had a few small accomplishments in the Second Amendment world. One of those was the fee reduction in our concealed handgun license. It used to be $140 to renew your license. It's now been decreased to $40. And the powers that be said that's what the actual cost was. So it's $40. I'm renewing mine right now. It actually expired yesterday for my birthday. So, and then, yeah, the big 3-7. Yeah. So, yeah. You'll have four. I have 3 brothers, and I'm the oldest of the 4. And I look the youngest, and I'm the smallest. So they used to make fun of me, but now I'm making fun of them. So, I do that because, well, they have gray hair and receding hairlines and beards, and they're bigger and stuff. So anyway, I need a little gray hair. Pete, take it more serious.
Stay in here long enough, you're good.
And I'm getting some now. But we also did away with the caliber requirement. Used to you had to use a centerfire cartridge. Now you can use a 22 or whatever. Emergency responders, we expanded where they could carry off duty. And I had a bill that I filed, and it come to me from a teacher up in Pittsburgh, and I'm going to try to expedite this and give Jay some time here. But I got an email back in September. And I wasn't in office yet. We had won, and we're headed there. And the teacher said, hey, man, citizens can carry a firearm in their vehicle onto school property and leave it in their vehicle. But school employees are not allowed to unless the school says they can. And I said, well, that doesn't make any sense. If we can trust everyday citizens, surely we can trust our school employees, right? And so what had happened to him, I have 7 kids, and so we've all had it happen. You come home from church, you pull up in the yard, and your headlights hit the front door, and the door's wide open. And so this happened to him. Him and his wife both teach. They work late at night. They're band teachers. And they pull up in the house, and the front door's wide open, and they got nothing. And so, first thing I do, I tell Mom and the kids, stay in the car. I get the pistol out of the console. I walk through the house, look under the bed, make sure everything's okay. But he's got nothing. And then also the trip to and from work, if you stop at the grocery store, stop at the gas station. And so I filed a bill saying that school employees with a license to carry, concealed and secured in their vehicles, could carry in their vehicles on school property. And this process down in the House, it's beautiful, but it's ugly, and it's wonderful, and it's terrible. But y'all know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you file a bill, it gets referred to its respective committee, and then you have to get it voted out of committee. But not all bills get a hearing, and even fewer bills get voted out of committee. Well, then when it comes out of that committee, it goes to the calendars committee, which schedules all the votes for the floor votes. And it has to pass that committee before it gets to the floor. Then it has to pass the floor, and then it has to go to the Senate and do the same thing, and then to the governor. So it's a big, convoluted mess. So we got it through the committee process into the calendars to get it scheduled. There it died. And so then our senator had it on the Senate side. Senate passed it, sent it to the House. I got it through the committee again, into calendars, and it died again. Well, we're bebopping along there one day, and I get an email from a teacher down in Brownsville, way down south. And he had actually come up and testified on the bill and for it. And he said, hey, man, I think you got a bill coming up that you can amend our gun bill to. And so, man, we looked, and it was SB 1566, I think. Ken King had the bill in the House. And so I got my bill and that bill and took it to the parliamentarian. And, you know, we can't just amend any crazy thing onto a bill. An amendment has to be germane to the bill. It has to be relative to the bill. You can't amend an apple onto an orange. You can't do that. And so I went to the parliamentarian, had to change some language in there, and made it germane. Went to the author of the bill and got his blessing to put it on the bill. To me, that's the way you're supposed to do things down there. You're supposed to work with the members and try to work with them and get things. I can force amendments. I can force an amendment on anybody's bill. That's one thing as freshmen that nobody can take from you, is that power to do an amendment on any bill, and then it's got to be voted up or down. But I wanted his blessing, which he gave, and so we got that bill amended onto another bill and got it signed into law. The bill was filed to affect public schools, private schools, and charter schools. And I had to take the private schools off because the bill I amended was a public school bill, so we'll have to go back and do the private deal. So this was not telling people they could carry into buildings or anything like that. It was just in their vehicle, which is, you know, we've had court cases that rule that extension of your home. And so those are three of the big things we did, amongst many other things. We took, 2,500, 3,000 record votes. So there was a whole bunch of more stuff that went on, but those were some of the highlights. And I'm going to hand it off to Jay. He's going to talk about some future stuff, maybe property taxes, and then we'll take questions.
All right. You know, Cole told you about the process, but that's another thing they didn't give us a book on, how to, once the idea of a bill comes up, how you get the bill to actually become law. And it's 7 or 8 steps really, and you got to go to, you know, have it legally drawn up so it meets all the constitutional muster. Then it's assigned to a specific committee. Now you have to go to the committee chair to see if you can get the committee chair to hear the bill. Then once the committee chair says, yeah, I'll hear the bill, then you got to go to all the committee members. Hey, this is my bill. What do you think about my bill? Do you have any problems with my bill? Everything's good there. Now we all can go back to the chairman. Can I get a schedule of the hearing of the bill? Once that happens, now I have to go to there's two different calendars which appoints the bills, if you will, to the floor. There's a general calendar, which means it's typically bills that have some, you know, fiduciary, you know, impact on the state or taxpayers. And then there's the local and consent. That means we're naming a highway after someone, and that's local. That's specific to this particular region. But it can't have one person on that calendar committee object to doing that, or your bill fails. So we have to work that whole process to get onto the specific calendar, and then once that happens, we have to go back and work on it to get a date assigned for that bill, and getting it out to the floor when there's 6,000 bills, and not all of those make it through, but still we're talking 2,000, 2,500 bills. So to get our little bills done, out to the floor, voted on, signed into law by the governor, because that's not always a sure case either. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a time-consuming process. And I was fortunate enough to be on the local and consent calendar, which is, like I said, we deal with issues that, A, there's no fiduciary impact on the bill at all. There's no monies involved. but they're specific to the local representative, that local representative's district. And I can tell you, going through the hordes of bills that we've got, trying to get them onto the calendar, especially in the final days of the session, it's unbelievable how much happens in the last week. You know, that where bills really start coming through. So it's a real fast pace, and I think I did grow a little. People can tell me from my age, my hair's still black. I said, yeah, I just don't have as much of it. But it is a very exciting, you know, especially last week. It seems like when we get down there, we kind of, you know, waiting. It's kind of like the hurry up to wait thing, and not really sure when we're going home, if we're going home. We don't know till the day of, you know, what's gonna take place. So it's a very fluid situation in Austin. And one of the first things we do when we go in, like Cole said, finding the bathroom, when you walk into that chamber and you know, you take that oath of office and you start looking around and seeing the pictures of the forefathers and the people that, you know, went before us in the legislature, but the people that actually made this state what it is, it's pretty you know, big. Then when you start learning, you know, Texas is the 10th largest economy in the world, and it's a huge responsibility that we deal with. And you know, it's easy for a lot of people to sit on the sidelines and throw darts over there, and that's fine. That goes with the territory. But until you're in the heat of that battle and seeing what's going on and all the moving parts that are there, it's something special. But the main thing is, and I mentioned to start with, it comes back to, you know, what's good for our district. You know, our district elects us to go represent them, represent our district first. And sometimes it comes contrary to what the popular deal, the political deal might be in Austin, but that's our responsibility. Going forward, I'm on the Appropriations Committee, and now there's a Select Appropriations Committee, which I'm on to deal with the Hurricane Harvey event. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to tell you that the next session will be all about Harvey in all different ways. How it's impacting our school districts, how it will impact our school districts, how it's impacting, you know, our cities and some of their ordinances, and you know, floodplain ordinances that we all deal with, and infrastructure needs. The first report we looked at that came from John Sharp, who's heading up the Rebuild Texas Committee for the governor. Their first ask is $61 billion. And even though that's a huge number, when you start looking at the size and scope of things, it's a lot bigger number than that. We had our first meeting in Houston, and the very first meeting we had was in Houston, and it was pretty intriguing. So on Friday before the meeting, our meeting was on Monday, there was a nice photo op with the governor handing off a $50 million check to Sylvester Turner, the mayor of Houston. He was the first person to speak to us that Monday morning, and he was asking for another check. And our question was, well, wait a minute, we just gave you $50 million on Friday. Oh, that's gone. It's gone. Oh, yeah. We need 50 more now just to remove some of the debris. So our meeting last week was in Corpus Christi. We met with the mayors of Rockport, Port Aransas, Corpus Christi. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something. That's where the storm, like you well know, went ashore. It sat over those people for 90 minutes. Those cities' infrastructure is 80 to 90% gone. They have no housing, so their citizens are scattered out. So they have no tax revenue. They have no hotel rooms to bring people back in. So one of the big issues, I think, and I'm hopeful that I'll meet with the governor tomorrow as part of this committee, is we've got to make these cities whole. You know, as being an old mayor, city manager, you understand this, but just imagine that you know, your citizens all leave. Okay, they're gone. Your businesses are all shut down. They lost all communication. Okay, they just now, they literally found a wire that they can, you know, tie back in. But those people are devastated. And my thought is we need to make those, before we start jumping into the 61 billion and all the things that Houston's asking for. They want us to build new reservoirs and new dikes and dams infrastructure. We get that. What about these people that don't have housing for their citizens to move back to? So I'm hopeful that what we'll do is address, the immediate need, which is to try to get these people back home. I think property tax, next session is going to be right where it was this session, but it's all going to be interrelated with school finance. I think Cole will agree, and most anybody who keeps up with this closely, you can't do one really without the other. And until we finally bite the bullet and say that we're going to come up, and I think you'll see a lot of that during the interim, we're going to come up with a better way to finance public education. There's not a whole lot of relief that you're going to see in property tax. 70% of your property tax bill is school and soup. We understand that. But we've got to get them in a better place, as well as we've got to get the taxpayers in a better place. And I think you'll see quite a bit of work done there. When they stand up, that means your time's short.